My name is Kayla Ryan. I am 28 years old. For a long time, I thought I had finally built a good life for myself, a life that had nothing to do with my father. I thought I had left all the hard, hurtful memories behind me. But some things never leave completely. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? When I was 18, my father kicked me out of the house. He gave me one suitcase for my clothes and one trash bag for the rest of my things. Then he shut the door. Just like that. 10 years of silence and hurt followed. 10 years of being on my own, figuring out how to survive. He never helped me with money for food. He never paid a dime of my rent. He never asked me how I was doing. He never called me when I had nowhere to sleep, when I was staying on a friend's couch because I had no home of my own. And all those long days and nights, when I worked double shifts to keep going to school, he never once checked in. The only reason I made it through those years was because of my grandmother, Isolde. She was the person who loved me unconditionally. She was the one who taught me how to clean floors not as a punishment, but as a skill to be proud of. She put money in little envelopes and called it emergency cookie money, whenever she knew I had none. She was always there to lift me up. She looked me in the eye and said, "If he throws you away, I will keep you." And she meant it. She was my safe place. Weeks after my grandmother passed away, I received a letter. An official letter. It said I had to go to the reading of her will. I knew she owned a mountain lodge. A beautiful old lodge perched high up on Willow Creek Mountain, like a secret hiding place between the clouds. I had spent many summers there, learning to love the place, but I never imagined it was worth over $1 million. And I certainly never imagined my father would show up, acting like nothing had ever happened. When I walked into the room where the will was going to be read, he was already there. Sitting at the polished table, smiling, like he owned the whole world. The same world that had thrown me out. The same world that had ignored me for 10 years. "This is good, kiddo," he said softly, just loud enough for me to hear. "Grandma's lodge is worth at least $1.36 million. We'll turn it into a real family business together." The words together hit me harder than any slap he had ever given me. He hadn't cared about me for a decade, and now he acted like we were partners. He hadn't visited me when I was struggling, and yet here he was, smiling like everything was fine. The only reason I was in that room was my grandmother. She had called me, loved me, and made sure I was okay when nobody else did. And now, even though she was gone, it felt like she had one last way to protect me. The judge cleared his throat and opened the will. I felt a cold feeling settle in my chest. Whatever my grandmother had written, it was about to change everything. I knew this moment could either save me or make my life even harder. And it would all happen in front of the people who had already shown me they didn't care if I fell. The room felt too small for the amount of history crammed into it. Memories of pain, love, anger, and heartbreak seemed to press against the walls. The judge sat at the head of the table. His papers were stacked neatly in front of him, each sheet perfectly aligned, like he wanted to keep order in a very messy situation. On one side of the table sat my father, Corvin Ryan. I didn't even think of him as my father yet, not out loud. Sitting with him were my mother, Saren, and my sister, Maylise. On the other side sat me and my grandmother's lawyer, Quintus. He had been my grandmother's trusted lawyer for years. He adjusted his glasses, glanced at the top page of the will, and gave me a small nod. It was as if he was saying, "This will hurt, but it's necessary." The judge spoke. "We are here to formalize the last will and testament of Isolde Ryan. All parties present?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," my father said quickly. "We are eager to honor my mother's legacy as a united family." United family. The words made me want to laugh. The last time I had seen him before my grandmother's funeral, he had been shouting at me to leave his house. He had told me I was ungrateful because I wouldn't quit school to work full-time for him. Now he called himself a united family member. My mother sat stiffly, hands folded so tightly that her knuckles were white. She didn't look at me at all. She stared straight ahead at a point on the wall, as if even a glance could break something fragile inside her. My sister Maylise, perfectly dressed as always, leaned back in her chair. She looked at me not like a sister, but like I was a rival in some competition she had already won. Her eyes were curious, but full of contempt. The judge nodded to Quintus. "You may proceed." Quintus cleared his throat. "Isolde Ryan, being of sound mind and body at the time of signing, hereby declares this her final will and testament." Sound mind. Those two words were heavy in the room. My father's jaw twitched slightly. He leaned toward Maylise and whispered, We'll make sure that phrase doesn't stand. My stomach tightened. They had a plan. They were going to pretend she didn't know what she was doing. Pretend she was confused or manipulated. They weren't here to grieve. They were here to win. As Quintus read through the small gifts first, cash to charities, sentimental items to distant cousins, I could feel my father's impatience growing. His fingers tapped a silent rhythm on the table. Melis checked her phone under the table. My mother flinched whenever either of them moved, but she didn't say a word. I kept my face blank. I repeated one thought in my head over and over like a shield. Grandma knew them. Grandma knew me. She didn't make a mistake. Still, I couldn't help but wonder. Why did the man who had disowned me walk in so relaxed, so sure, as if all he had to do was smile to get what he wanted? Quintus's voice changed as he neared the part that mattered most. Even the judge straightened in his chair. Something big was coming. Now, Quintus said, we come to the disposition of the primary asset. The mountain lodge on Willow Creek Mountain, currently appraised at approximately $1,360,000. The number hung in the air like a chandelier about to fall. Melis sat up straight. My father stopped tapping. My mother finally moved her eyes from the wall to me. In respect to the lodge, Quintus continued, Mrs. Isolde Rhine writes, this lodge is my life's work, my refuge, and my apology to my granddaughter. Apology? My throat tightened. She had never had to apologize to me for anything, but she knew someone else should have. I bequeath full operational control and beneficial interest of the lodge, Quintus read slowly, to my granddaughter, Kayla Rhine, under the following conditions. My father exhaled as if he had just won. He smiled broadly and placed his hand over his heart. That's wonderful, he said. See, she wants you to have it. We'll help you run it, sweetheart. Well, I'm not done. Quintus interjected sharply. The judge raised a hand in silence. My father's smile froze. Condition 1. For a minimum of 5 years, the lodge cannot be sold, leased, mortgaged, or transferred without Kayla Rhine's written permission. My father's cheek twitched. Melis's mouth opened slightly in disbelief. Condition 2. No family member, including my father, my mother, or my sister, may make any decisions about the lodge without my approval. The room went completely quiet. Condition 3. If any family member tries to fight the will, challenge my authority, or undermine me, the lodge will immediately go to a charity for young people. No one in the family will get anything. Melis gasped. My mother closed her eyes. My father went very still. His confident mask slipped. That's insane, he snapped. My mother loved this family. She wouldn't do this. Quintus slid the document forward. This clause was drafted by Mrs. Rhine herself in my presence. She reviewed it multiple times. She was entirely lucid every single time. I stared at my father. For the first time, he looked small and unsure. Or she was manipulated, he growled. People get confused when they are old. She was talking nonsense. You visited her twice in 3 years, I said quietly. You heard whatever was convenient for you. For a moment, our eyes met. All the pain from that night 10 years ago pressed down again. The night he told me to leave, the slam of the door, the silence that followed for a decade. I realized then that my grandmother's will wasn't just revenge. It was a test. Would I protect what she gave me, even if it meant burning what was left of my family? If you were in my place, holding a legacy that could vanish the moment someone weak tried to take it, would you risk losing everything to stop the people who already threw you away once? The formal reading ended, but the real battle started the moment we stepped out into the hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. They made every face look too sharp. Every lie looked obvious. Melis stormed ahead. Her heels clicked like gunshots. My mother lingered behind, clutching her handbag like she could disappear inside it. My father blocked my path. He planted himself in the middle of the corridor like he had done all his life with people he wanted to scare. We need to talk, he said. His voice was low, but not low enough that Melis and Saren couldn't hear him. I folded my arms. Reality is a signed will and a judge who just heard it, I said. His smile was tight, lips stretched without warmth. Reality is you have no idea how to run a multi-million-dollar property, he said. You've never managed staff, bookings, tavionetting, maintenance. You are a sentimental kid with a guilt complex. You will drown in responsibility. Good thing I learned to swim when you threw me out, I replied. His eyes flashed. Don't start with that drama. You were rebellious. You refused to work in the business. You chose to leave. I remembered standing in the hallway that night 10 years ago, him shouting that I could take my attitude somewhere else and see how far that degree gets me when I was starving. Funny how, in his version, I had simply chosen to leave. You disowned me, I said steadily. You told me I wasn't your daughter anymore. His jaw tightened. Words said in anger, he muttered. You know how family fights go, but this? This is generational wealth, Kayla. Bigger than old arguments. Grandma wanted all of us to benefit. She was confused. Manipulated. Whatever. We can fix this. We work together. Adjust a few things. Make you the public face and everyone wins. Everyone? I asked. Or just you? Melis spun back toward us, eyes blazing. This isn't complicated, she snapped. You sign some papers, give Dad and me equal say, and we turn the lodge into a luxury resort. We already have investors interested. You think your little memories with Grandma are worth more than that? I shot back, my voice steady. While you two were ignoring her calls, I was learning every creaking floorboard, every story of every guest. She didn't leave me a cash machine. She left me at home. My dad stepped closer, and his voice dropped low, almost like he was trying to scare me. Listen carefully, Kayla, he said. If you try to do this alone, you will fail. No one will book the lodge. Fixing everything will cost too much money. And when you finally come back, it will be too late. You'll have lost your chance to be part of this family again. Is that really what you want? For a moment, I felt the old fear creep into me. I thought about being alone, having no one to help me, and sitting at night counting the last few bills in my wallet. The kind of fear that made your stomach hurt and your hands shake. But then I remembered who really kept me safe. It wasn't the man in front of me, I said quietly but firmly. It was the woman whose signature is now protecting me from him. I already lost this family, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. The day you threw me out, you made that choice for both of us. Grandma gave me a second chance, not to crawl back, but to build something that is finally mine. My dad's face hardened. The charm, the little smiles that usually made people forgive him, disappeared. Now it was just anger. You're making a mistake you can't fix, he hissed. You think some charity rule scares me? I will fight you. I think, I said. That's exactly what she wanted. For a heartbeat, we just stood there, staring at each other. His threat, my brave answer, my mom quietly crying behind him, Melis rolling her eyes as if she had no patience for any of this. Then he leaned in close, almost nose to nose. If this becomes a war, he said slowly, don't cry when you lose everything. Not just the lodge, your reputation, your future, everything. He turned and walked away, Melis at his side. Their shadows stretched long down the hallway and disappeared around the corner, like a warning. My mom lingered for a moment, her eyes wet and her lips trembling. But she didn't say a word. She just gave me a broken look, and then followed them. I stood alone, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My dad's threat kept echoing in my mind. Was this a warning from a parent? Or a declaration of war from a man who couldn't stand losing control? That evening, I drove up to Willow Creek Mountain with my car full of boxes and my mind full of determination. The lodge appeared through the trees as I turned the last bend. It looked familiar, but also wild and free. The wooden siding that Grandma insisted we painted every spring was weathered but strong, just like her. The front porch sagged a little, but the view of the valley stretched out like a painting, making every problem feel small. I took a deep breath and unlocked the door with the key that was now legally mine. Inside, it smelled like pine cleaner and old coffee, a mix that reminded me of Grandma. It should have felt like a heavy responsibility. Instead, it felt like an answer. I didn't start with spreadsheets or plans about money. I started with a corkboard. I pinned up photos of families laughing around the fire pit, kids running across the lawn, couples watching the sunset from the balcony. On blank note cards, I wrote words Grandma had said. People don't come here for perfection. They come here to remember they're still alive. Then I sketched plans. Weekends for families, company retreats to reconnect, special off-season packages to keep the lodge busy all year. I realized revenge wouldn't be me yelling at my dad. Revenge would be full rooms and a long waiting list. So this is the war room, Tavian said when he walked in. He had been my friend since college. Once, he even paid my phone bill with his own grocery money because mine kept getting cut off. He leaned against the doorway, looking at my board covered with photos, maps, and plans. It's very you. Organized chaos with a little bit of bossy motivation. I laughed for the first time that day. I told him, Grandma left me the lodge and she included a special rule. If anyone tries to take it from me, it goes to charity. My dad is already angry. He's coming. I just don't know when. Then we make this place so strong, Tavian said. That when he comes, he runs headfirst into a wall of fully booked rooms and glowing reviews. We got to work. We hired local workers to fix the roof, update the plumbing, and freshen up the rooms without changing their character. I turned one storage room into a small library with board games and children's books. Tavian helped make a simple website and convinced me to film a shaky video on my phone, showing Grandma's lodge and explaining what I wanted to do in her honor. Within weeks, the first guests arrived. A couple celebrating their anniversary, a family reunion, a group of friends escaping the city. Guests wrote notes in the comment book about how peaceful it was and how it reminded them of childhood. Every good review felt like a brick in the wall between my dad and what he wanted. Of course, he didn't sit quietly. Rumors started in town that I didn't know what I was doing, that the lodge was unsafe, that Grandma had been confused when she changed her will. I overheard someone in the grocery store say, "Corvin is just trying to protect what's rightfully his. That girl barely knows how to run her own life." I pretended not to hear, but later that night it hit me like a punch. Sitting on the porch with Tavian, watching the last guest car drive away, I admitted, "What if he's right? What if I ruin the lodge and prove him right?" Tavian didn't look away from the horizon. "He disowned you because you wouldn't be his employee," he said. "Now he's mad because you aren't his subordinate in this either. Failing would prove him right. Succeeding will drive him crazy. Which do you prefer?" I thought about my dad's face when he heard about the charity rule, the way his confidence cracked. I thought about Grandma's signature under those impossible conditions. "Success," I said. "Good," Tavian replied. "Every time you doubt yourself, ask one question. Are you going to let the man who threw you out decide what you are capable of?" Success came slowly but surely. Within a few months, weekend bookings were full. Photos of the lodge appeared on social media with captions like "hidden gem" and "feels like visiting your favorite grandparent, but with better Wi-Fi." I should have relaxed, but the tension changed shape instead. It wasn't gone, it had just shifted. One afternoon, I was in the office reviewing bills when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Miss Rhine," a crisp voice said. "This is Brenner Voss, representing Corvin and Melis Rhine." I knew I should sit down. "Go on," I said. "Your father and sister have concerns about the will," he said. "They believe she was influenced and may not have been thinking clearly. We are filing a petition to contest the will and request an emergency hearing about the lodge." My hands shook, not from surprise, but from knowing the fight had officially started. I called Tavian. He arrived within the hour, laptop in hand, looking serious. "We knew this was coming," he said. "Now we know when." So we built our case. Our days split into two. In one, I was the lodge owner, greeting guests, fixing lights, tasting food, laughing with kids. In the other, I was a strategist, checking Grandma's medical records, getting statements from her doctor, and finding guests who had spent time with her in her final year. Quintus helped. "Isolde planned for this," he said one late night. "That's why she recorded the day she signed the final will." On the screen, Grandma appeared. Her hair was thinner, her cheeks more sunken, but her eyes were sharp and playful. "If my son ever says I didn't know what I was doing," she said to the camera, "you tell him I've known what he was up to since he was 16 and learned to lie with a straight face." I laughed through tears. There she was, calling out his tricks from beyond the grave. Meanwhile, in town, my dad told a different story. He took my mom and sister to events, saying Grandma was confused and that I was being used. Some people believed him. Others didn't. I could see it in how neighbors greeted me, some warmly, some with tight smiles and whispered words when I walked by. The emotional toll was heavy. Some nights, I lay awake imagining all possible outcomes. Losing the lodge, my dad winning, Grandma's legacy reduced to just money. One night, close to midnight, I went to the kitchen and found my mom sitting in the dark. She startled when I turned on the light. "I can't sleep," she said quietly. "Corvin is very determined," I said. She looked older than I remembered. "He borrowed money," she whispered. "He promised investors that once the will is corrected, the lodge will be collateral. If he loses, it won't just be pride. He could go bankrupt." For a moment, I felt guilty. Then I remembered how she had watched him hurt me and said nothing. "He chose this," I said. "He chose to take what Grandma didn't want him to have." She looked at me with sorrow and something like envy. "You sound like her," she said. She never backed down either. I poured some water, leaned against the counter, and asked, "Mom, do you believe she knew what she was doing when she wrote that will?" She stared at the table. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Would you say that under oath?" I asked. She flinched. I don't know," she said. Then she grabbed her coat and left. As the door closed, I realized this wasn't just about facts. It was about who had the courage to say them out loud. Living under someone else's control makes it hard to finally tell the truth. The day of the emergency hearing was gray and cold, like the sky knew what was coming. I wore my simplest outfit, a black dress, a blazer, and Grandma's old silver necklace. Tavian drove me, his hand steady on the wheel. "Remember," he said, "this isn't about proving you're perfect. It's about proving you're the one she trusted and that she had the right to choose." Inside the courtroom, everything felt too bright and exposed. My dad sat at the plaintiff's table in an expensive suit, looking like he expected to win. Maylis scrolled on her phone beside him. Their lawyer arranged folders neatly. My mom sat behind them, eyes on the floor. On our side, it was just me, Quintus, and Tavian. The judge, the same from the will reading, called the session to order. "We are here to consider the petition filed by Corvin and Maylis Rhine to contest the will of Isolde Rhine, specifically regarding the Willow Creek Mountain Lodge." My dad's lawyer started speaking. He talked about Grandma as if she was confused and could not make big financial decisions. He said I was easily influenced, and that Quintus and I tricked Grandma into leaving out the rest of the family. I clenched my jaw but stayed quiet. When my dad was called to the stand, he put on a performance that looked like a movie. He acted hurt, sad, and heartbroken. He talked about Grandma being confused and how she had been tricked by a greedy lawyer and me. Every word was meant to make people feel sorry for him. He talked about working all day and all night to take care of the family, about how sad he felt when I stayed away from him, and about how shocked he was when he found out that his mother had turned against him at the end of her life. He even wiped at his eyes with a handkerchief, pretending to cry. If I didn't know him so well, I might have believed him. Quintus's turn to speak was quieter. He didn't act dramatically or make big gestures. He simply showed papers and documents. He showed dates, medical reports, and evaluations that proved Grandma was thinking clearly. He even showed emails where she had written down what she wanted for the lodge, long before she got sick. Then he looked at me, and I knew it was my turn. "We call Kayla Rhine to the stand," the lawyer said. My legs felt like they were made of lead as I walked up to the front. But when I sat down and placed my hand on the Bible, a strange calm filled me. Something inside me felt steady, strong, and ready. I told the truth. I told the court about all the years I spent at the lodge with Grandma. I talked about the nights we spent on the balcony, the cool wind brushing our faces, and her telling me stories about how she built the lodge from nothing. I told about the way she winced when my father pressured her to expand the lodge too quickly and take loans she didn't want. I repeated her exact words about the will. "If your father wants the lodge, he'll have to want you first. And if he can't do that, he gets nothing." My father's lawyer tried to make me look bad. He asked, "Isn't it true, Kayla, that you are still mad at your father for disowning you?" "Yes, I am," I said calmly. "But my anger didn't write the will. My grandmother did." "And isn't it possible," he asked, "that your grandmother, feeling guilty or confused, gave you too much control by mistake?" "No," I said. "It's possible my father didn't understand how clearly she really saw him." A quiet murmur went through the courtroom. The judge lightly hit the table with his gavel. "Order," he said. Then Quintus called our last witness. My father's confident face suddenly looked nervous. "The defense calls Saren Rhine," he said. My mother looked like she might faint. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't go. But slowly, with tiny steps, she stood up and walked to the stand. Each step was brave. Each step was her saying, "I am not afraid anymore." Every step was her standing up to the man she had followed for so many years. "Mrs. Rhine," Quintus said softly, "you were present for many conversations between your mother-in-law and the family. Can you tell the court what you saw about her mental state when she discussed her will?" My mother's hands shook in her lap. She looked at my father. He glared at her, like he was trying to scare her. She looked at me. I didn't say a word. I just let her see the question in my eyes. "Who do you want to be today?" Isolde was stubborn, just like her daughter. My mother began. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. Grandma was clear about what she wanted, even when we didn't like it. She knew numbers, dates, and details. She remembered things from years ago. She was not confused, not at all. My father's lawyer stood up. "Objection, Your Honor." "Overruled," the judge said. My mother continued, gaining strength. "Grandma told me more than once that she was leaving the lodge to Kayla to manage. She said Corvin would only treat it as a business. She didn't trust him with it." The words hit like a hammer. My father's face turned red, almost purple. Saren, he whispered angrily, but the microphone picked it up. What are you doing? She flinched but kept talking. Grandma was not tricked. She was trying to protect what she built. And she believed Kayla would protect it too. For the first time, my father looked shocked. Not shocked because of the law, but shocked because the woman who had followed him for years was finally standing on her own. The rest of the hearing went by fast. They showed a video of Grandma talking, a doctor talking, and papers that proved my father had made risky deals hoping to get the lodge. Quintus didn't just defend the will. He showed my father's real reason for trying to take it. It was clear. My father wanted the lodge for money, not for love or family. When the lawyers finished talking, the judge looked at his notes for a long time. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own breathing. My heart was pounding, but I tried to stay calm. Finally, the judge spoke. The evidence shows that Isolde Rhine was thinking clearly when she made her will. Her wishes are clear, and many witnesses and documents prove it. My father's shoulders tensed. His lawyer looked straight ahead, not daring to say a word. Therefore, the judge continued, the petition to contest the will is denied. The will stays as it is. Kayla Rhine will manage the lodge as Grandma wanted. Relief hit me like a big wave. I felt my legs shaking, but it was happiness, not fear. I almost didn't hear the next part. Also, the judge said, because this challenge was selfish and clearly done for money, all court costs and Brenner fees will be paid by the plaintiffs, Corvin and Maelys Rhine. The courtroom went silent. My father opened his mouth, but no words came out. My sister turned to him, shocked. Dad, she whispered, we don't have that kind of money. She stopped when she saw me. I wasn't gloating or smiling. I was just calm. Later, I learned more. The investors my father had promised access to the lodge, the loans he took expecting to use the lodge as collateral. All of it collapsed. The court's decision didn't just cost him money. It made his risky deals fail. Within months, he had to sell things he loved, cars, a vacation condo, and parts of the very business he had bragged about for years. In the end, it wasn't me who ruined his plans. It was his own greed, his own mistakes, and his own bad choices. Outside the courthouse, my mother came up slowly. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry, she said. For a lot of things. I nodded. Thank you for telling the truth, I said. That was hers to give, not mine to demand. She nodded quietly, and for the first time, she didn't follow my father. She walked away alone. Tavian came up beside me, grinning. Well, he said, you just watched karma work in real life. I looked up at the gray sky, the cold wind filling my lungs. I thought of Grandma. No, I said quietly. I watched my grandmother's faith in me win. Months later, the lodge was busier than ever. Families came and went, their laughter echoing in the hallways, just like Grandma wanted. Sometimes, when I stood on the balcony at sunset, I imagined her beside me, arms crossed, eyes sparkling. You did it, I whispered. You made sure he couldn't use me as a pawn. The revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow and sharp. It was success he couldn't control, truth he couldn't change, and consequences he couldn't escape. But as I watched children running on the lawn and couples holding hands by the fire, a quiet thought came to me. When justice happens, and the person who hurt you gets what they deserve, what do you do with the part of yourself that still wishes they could have simply chosen to be better? Even after everything, even after the victory, that question stayed in my mind. And I knew the answer wasn't easy. You can't make someone better if they don't want to be. You can only be better yourself. And that, I realized, was what Grandma had wanted for me all along. Not revenge, not money, not proof, but to be strong, to be wise, and to carry her lodge and her spirit forward with honesty and love.